All right, all right, all right. Look at everybody's back. Everybody's done Moabbing. Actually, it's not a thing. You don't actually Moab. You are just in Moab learning how to be a four-wheeler. Dr. Dave, welcome back, dude.
Hey, it's good to be back.
Yes,
Missed you guys
sir.
last week. I was up north learning how to not flip my Bronco upside down.
And we're going to talk about that. I kind of want to set up what's going to happen here today. What's up, Mental Joe? How are you?
I'm good, gentlemen. How are you guys?
Good, good. So we're going to talk today about, you just saw it up there, right? We're going to talk about accountability buddies today. And I think, a lot of people probably have heard of things like a sponsor or mentor or, maybe even some level of friendship. But I don't know. There's something different about an accountability buddy. And that's why we're going to talk about that today. And it's kind of a two-step process to figure out what's needed and who's going to fill that need. We're going to break that stuff down for you guys here on our stream today, which eventually gets put up as a podcast and all. But welcome to the show. I guess it is June 15th, the day also known as the day that my Instagram account was hacked. And I'm mortified because I'm so embarrassed. I'm the one responsible, boys. It was me. I clicked the link.
Did they get any sensitive information?
I don't know. That's just it, right? I don't know what they have. I don't know what they're going to take. I don't know any of this stuff. I just know it's frustrating. So here's the thing, friends. If you get a direct message from Meta and it's telling you that, you have, they've reviewed your account and you're ready to be verified, don't click that thing at all. It's a trick. A trick, and I hate it because they did such a good job disguising it. They used their logo and they had their address, and it was like, God, it looks so. They worked so hard to be an asshole.
That's a good thing. I got 500 followers. If they hack it, it's just starting over tomorrow. No big deal.
Oh God, I hate it. Crazy.
You had a healthy portion of people though, so that's no fun.
We're gonna get it back. It's no big deal, but it is certainly so frustrating because it's one of those things where you're like, do I even really want that stupid thing?
That's why I hired somebody. I can't do it.
You don't think about how much time goes into that, but all those posts, when you stretch it out over a number of years, it's hours and hours and hours of time invested in these social media accounts.
Totally. Yeah. I'm not always sure it's worth it, but anyways, enough about that. So anyways, if you follow me on Instagram, don't click on anything right now. It's a mess out there and I'm trying to get it under control. Last week we had a guy on named Dr. Berselli, and I just want to play a quick clip for everybody just to refresh, because then I want to get some thoughts from you on this, Dr. Dave. So here's this.
And what we discovered, and Chad knows this as well, that you can take every trauma or every stressor you've ever experienced in your life, if it's still held in your body today, which many of them can be, that tremor mechanism can kind of go back in time because it's still in the physiology of the body, and it actually can release all of that tension and tightness and actually restore the body back to a very calm and relaxed state.
So that's fascinating to me, and I was kind of excited to get with you, Dr. Dave, just to see what you thought about as you heard that, and what your training tells you as a psychiatrist who specializes in trauma and has for the better part of 2 decades. Are we storing that stuff physiologically in our body? What do you know about that?
Yeah, when you get exposed to dangerous situations, your brain kind of resets, and the threshold that you have for reacting to danger gets set very sensitive. And so that's going to come out in your body in a lot of different ways. Plus, you also have stress hormones, which are also going to be set differently. So you're, the short-term stress hormone is adrenaline, but when adrenaline is running high for a period of time, then cortisol gets raised. And when cortisol starts running high for a period of time, then you have all kinds of other physiological changes that can cause problems with heart disease and things like that later on. So it stays in the body. trauma stays in the body through different means.
Yeah, fascinating. It was a great talk. I encourage anybody that missed it to go back and listen to it. And I know you're trained in this, Metal Joe, now, and you've seen firsthand how this helps people. But for anybody that missed it last week, talk to me about what TRE did for you. That specific moment where he's talking about that tremor releasing the trauma that you've been storing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was this out of box kind of holistic approach that I was looking for. And TRE really kind of opened up the door to, me being open to meditation and yoga and, I'll say, psychedelics, just open to a holistic, approach to mental health in general. When I went through it, it was some of the best sleep I've had in years. I mean, the releases I had weren't, gnarly or significant. And you can Google TRE releases or tremors, and you can see some videos. And there's some on our Mental Joe website that we have where people are, really shaking hard. And there are people that have disassociated and had full on crying spells. And me not being a psychologist or a psychiatrist there, when I'm doing these sessions, there's a lot of, oh shit, in the back of my mind, because I want to make sure that these people are in a safe space, because I want to hold that space for them. But if it comes to, them wanting to regurgitate and talk about shit, it's like, oh, I got to refer this out. I am not your guy. But it's amazing to see this go through. And it was kind of a calling for me. And so I became a provider, and that's where the Mental Joe started. We really tried doing a TRE. And again, like I tried explaining in past, is it was so hard to try to explain this modality to alpha males in the military. They're like, you mean I'm going to lay on the ground and I'm going to shake, I'm going to feel better? I'm going to call bullshit on that, So you don't get really far unless you do it. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, okay, I can see the benefits of this. So.
Yeah, love it. What's up, Scott? Thanks for being by. Well, let's.
It sounds like it purges the system, though.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
You know what I was thinking about is doesn't it? It almost seems like a really good modality to add to what you're doing, right? Like it's a nice thing to add to medication, nice thing to add to talk therapy, a nice thing to add to acupuncture, whatever you're chasing. Don't you think, Dave?
Oh yeah, if you're keeping all that tension in, it's not going to be healthy for you.
Yeah.
And there has to be a way to release it. Some people do exercise or other physical means to release it, but that sounds like a good physical release to just let loose some of that tension. And then I think psychologically too, when you go through that, you get a real sense of letting go, and that's got to be helpful psychologically as well.
I think so. It makes sense to me. What do you want to say, Chad?
I was just going to ask Dr. Dave, if we know that trauma is stored within the body, within the cells, things of that nature, in, we'll just say the traditional sense of, your talk therapy, your medications and onward, if we know this is stored in our bodies, why are we not advocating for, not only here's some pills and here's this, but you're going to go to a yoga session 3 times a week at the VA clinic, or you're going to go to a meditation clinic, or, hey, this guy, Mental Joe, Chad McLean's coming into the VA clinic to do TRE 3 times a week. Why is that not? I don't understand. If we understand, I feel like this is there, like, why not?
I feel like I know the answer, and it's because you can't qualify it person to person. You can't measure it. Is that some of it, Dave?
You're close. It's if you're talking about like the VA treatment or like other healthcare facilities, they have a whole process, called evidence-based medicine and evidence-based treatments. And they define that by a certain number of placebo-controlled studies and things like that. So when it comes to some of the alternative treatments, unless it's gone through kind of their rigors, they don't really want to know about it. And then that also ties in with insurance in a lot of cases. So, if insurance hasn't heard of it, if it's not part of the traditional standard of care, they don't want to get involved with picking it up. It's almost like it's too complicated, so they just kind of shrug their shoulders and brush it off. But But I think there's definitely a role for a lot of these things. What it comes down to is who's going to pay for it, and then that's where if it kind of falls outside of the bounds, and there's not really a curiosity for adding it in.
But
Yeah, no.
I'm somebody who used to have the attitude of a little bit of distaste and like, why won't they include it and why don't they get it? But this is what I think our role in community is. This is where folks like us come into the fold. This is why people like us can have a place in this world, is because we do see the need. We see that there's a little bit of a shortcoming here, and we can step up and be the people that at least try to make as much noise as we can about it, to say there are other things available and you might want to try these things in conjunction with what you're doing, which I think takes us straight to our topic today of accountability buddies. And I know we're all really super jacked to get into this discussion today. And Dr. Dave sent us a bit of a dissertation on accountability buddies leading up to the podcast, which was amazing. And you really, dude, you're so great because you simplify things to a level where you can eat it. And you're like, okay, there's two things that kind of have to happen in order for you to set up an accountability. Step one is you got to match the accountability person with the accountability need. And then step two is you need to figure out what type or level of accountability is needed. So I'll let you jump into this as best you see fit. And Chad, you and I can just poke holes along the way.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So when it comes to accountability, I think it starts with, what is your goal? What are you trying to accomplish, and where are you trying to go with it? There's different ways to approach it. So some accountability goals might include improving the quality of a relationship. Other accountability goals might be trying to eliminate or minimize a certain type of behavior, right? So that kind of falls more in line with addictions or anger management, where there's a thing that you do. It doesn't happen all the time. When it happens, it causes a lot of disruption, and you want to make it not happen anymore. You can set goals for yourself. But it's oftentimes difficult to stay on track with it because of a number of things, daily distractions. You're just not in the habit of doing it. And so establishing new habits are always challenging. And setting up accountability, an accountability partner or accountability buddy, it keeps that issue on the radar for you. So you know what it is that you're working toward. You have somebody that's going to ask you about it, right? So there's something about trying to save face and not be embarrassed when somebody's checking in with you. You want to make sure that you put some effort into it. If nobody's checking, it's easy to just let it slide and fall back into old habits again.
Should this be your wife or your spouse or your boyfriend or your girlfriend? Or are they too close to the situation?
It depends on what it is that you're trying to do, right? So when we're talking about things like post-traumatic stress or traumatic issues, so let's say you have a problem with anger, but it stems from a traumatic situation that you were involved in. Going into great detail with a spouse might be too much for them. You might not want to lay all that on them and then have them experience some level of trauma, kind of imagining what that must have been like. And you also want to preserve that relationship for its strengths, and not necessarily bring that level of detail into a relation, an intimate relationship, a partner or spouse.
Can I ask you really quick, Chad? Can I ask you really quick, Chad? Would you declare your wife? Is this true of you guys? Does she know all the details of everything that happened to you? Has she been let in all the way that way?
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
okay.
Kind of, I guess you'd say, when I started the mental health journey, like I've opened up Pandora's box a little bit. But probably in the last year, she's really kind of understood, like, oh shit, I knew there was more in the rabbit hole. I just didn't know how deep this shit went, kind of a deal. So yeah, she's fully on board. I mean, there's some family members. My mom doesn't know everything. My sister, my brother don't know everything, but my wife does for sure. It's, we share a house, we've got kids. She needs to understand all the garbage. And I think the more comfortable I become in my skin in this journey, the more I'm okay to talk about it as I remember things. And again, some of it is foggy, some of it, like there's certain details I don't even remember about my military experience. It's like I feel like there's a whole 6-month period where I don't remember a goddamn thing. But I know I woke up every day and went to PT. I know I had chow 3 times a day at the chow hall, but I don't remember those instances at all. So it's, as I start remembering more and things start connecting, it's weird how I can, like, oh shit, okay, I kind of remember this situation.
Dave, can I ask you specifically about, we talk about different addictions. We talk a lot about alcohol on reserve for vets, but pornography is another place that I think a lot of dudes go. And so what if that's your thing and you're looking for an accountability buddy in that? You can see where this is an awkward conversation. You can see where the guys are going to razz you and be like, dude, why do you want to stop watching that? I mean, you can hear everything that's about to come out. So if anybody's struggling with that kind of addiction, how do you find the accountability buddy there?
Yeah, I think you don't want to. I think you don't want to use your spouse for that kind of accountability, because it's something that affects the relationship directly, right? So it's not just, oh, I looked at porn last night. It's like, well, why didn't you approach me for sex? Or what's wrong with me that you have to even go look at this stuff, right? So you have an accountability person who's directly and emotionally connected to the situation, and they're not going to be objective if you slip up. It's very hard to kind of separate that out. Finding a friend that you trust. Some people find accountability groups through a church. Some people find accountability groups through a therapist. I know the Meadows has a sexual addiction program. And then they also have groups that allow for follow-up after. There was even a WhatsApp group so that people could be accountable to each other. Maybe like 8 people on a WhatsApp. If somebody's struggling, they put a message out, and then other people, whoever's available, can kind of help them get through the rough spot.
And I've come to learn over the last couple of years that the reason we get addicted to sex and that release, that orgasm, that thing that happens in our hips, is because for those of us along the way who've sustained some sort of sexual abuse or some trauma, well, like Dr. Berselli said last week, a lot of that trauma gets stored in our bodies. And one of the biggest places it gets stored is in our hips and our pelvis. And so I don't think it's not a stretch for people to understand why having an orgasm, right? Why doing that? Why wanting to watch porn and have that release, right? Tremor, you got what I'm saying here, Chad? Why that would make somebody feel better? Why you would want to chase that feeling? And so I mentioned that for no other reason than to maybe turn a light bulb into somebody's head so that you understand kind of why you're addicted to the sex and why you're addicted to the feeling. It's because you're just trying to release it. You're trying to feel better. You're trying to do kind of what Berselli talks about there. What's a realistic goal for somebody who wants to, be held accountable for in that space, Dave?
A reasonable goal. Well, what makes something a disorder is that it's causing disruptions elsewhere. Right. So if pornography is becoming a substitution for true intimacy, if some of the things that you're involved with start kind of escalating and you're wanting to act them out with a partner that's not willing, that creates tension in the relationship. So there's places that it can go where it's not just, innocently watching a porn movie, but how it affects your mind and how it affects how you approach real relationships in your life, or using it as a substitute for real relationships in your life, which is where it can be a problem. But Matt, you touched on something about early childhood abuse, or, for some women too, if they were a victim of sexual assault. I've seen situations where people go back into things, and what drives the addiction ties in with what Freud talked about as far as mastery. So, you know, when we're little and we're growing up, we try to master things. We try to, you know, keep going at something until we get good at it and feel competent doing it. And sometimes in a traumatic space, you know, you walk away from the situation feeling like, well, how the hell did that happen? You know, and I didn't see that coming, right? So that gap that's left behind by the surprise, the shock of the situation can sometimes drive people one of two ways. So either complete avoidance, which is one, or sometimes a pathological attempt to master the situation. So you wonder sometimes how somebody who had been abused as a child could become an abuser later on, or somebody that was sexually assaulted might go out and engage in risky situations, you know, go to a singles bar alone, and agree to go home with somebody that they don't even know. You know, you're doing things that have the high likelihood of getting you into trouble again. But it's a misguided attempt to try to gain the upper hand in the situation, and usually it doesn't end up well.
Yeah. You said step 2 in this thing is we need to figure out what type or level of accountability is needed. And I would love to have at some point in this little exchange today, kind of an open dialogue about, you know, who's going to be best suited for this thing, right? It's not somebody who's looking out for themselves. They got to be completely invested in you as a person. They got to be 100% non-judgmental. They can't bring any of that stuff to the table, because otherwise they're just gonna taint the waters, right?
Yeah, I think in many cases it makes sense if you find somebody who's struggling with a similar situation,
There you go.
because then you're able to mutually hold each other accountable.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, it kind of just happened out of just curiosity and touch and base. Once we kind of relaunched Mental Joe and started coming out with my mental health struggles and things of that nature, it was amazing to me that a lot of friends from a distance
Mhm.
really kind of reached out and said, "Hey, man, I never knew you struggled with this. Like, wish I would have known." You know, so it was really kind of different to see that angle, like a lot of people watching you from a distance. Well, I've got a friend now, him and I are accountability partners, and it wasn't anything that we just, you know, kind of signed up for. It was, you know, I've got 2 young boys. He's got a young daughter, a new little guy, and then 2 older girls that are essentially teens. And him and I have always kind of been friends, never, you know, great buddies, love each other, but never really kind of hung out just because our life paths were on different things. But now that we're on this same path, him and I talk weekly. And it's like, you know, am I bad at this dad thing? You know, we kind of just leave it open for him. You know, and just talk about everything from, hey, how's the sex with the wife? Are you, you know, are you able to get lucky twice this week? What's the goal for it? You know, and
Mhm.
we approached both of our wives and said, hey, like, we're going to talk about everything. We need to have this ability to just vomit and get another guy's opinion that's, you know, in the same situation. And in fact, him and I meet every Wednesday, or we try to. And if not, you know, we text the day before or the day after and, you know, hey, how are you? You got 20 minutes and let's chat. So being in that same kind of comfort level, man, it's amazing how life is so equilibrium when you talking about someone that's in that almost same space, I guess.
Yeah. What do you think we should be responsible for being accountable for, Dave? Feels
Uh,
like, you know, that's
yeah,
worth talking about, right?
yeah. So yeah, as Chad was talking, I was thinking, from my perspective, a lot of times I'm dealing with like the really heavy clinical things, and a single disorder that's completely disrupting somebody. But you know, all of us have struggles to one extent or another, and they're usually kind of run of the mill things that everybody deals with to some extent. Um, I think, Chad, what you're touching on is kind of making a lifestyle out of self-improvement and trying to be the best person that you can be with what you have, right?
Mm.
So how, so you're talking about parenting, you're talking about the relationship. So, how can I enjoy a better, less conflictual relationship with my spouse? What are you doing to not piss off your wife? And maybe I can try doing that too, right?
Exactly.
Or what are you doing to not screw up your kids?
Yep.
And it's just kind of this personal commitment to living better, treating other people better, working on the flaws that we all have. And I think the idea to make a lifestyle out of it and find an accountability person for that makes a lot of sense. And you're similar age, kind of at a similar stage in life, and so the things that may come up for you as a question mark, maybe your buddy already did it, or he's kind of wondering the same thing, and you can kind of hash it out together and come up with something.
Yeah, I had to tweet that out. I had to tweet that quote out. Make a lifestyle out of self-improvement. I thought that was such a great quote, Dave.
Yep. Love that. Yeah. And it's like next weekend, I think he's gonna come over and bring his 2 little ones. My wife's gonna be out of town for a business, and she's gonna stay a couple extra days, do a girls thing and kind of reset her mind and try to relax. And then I told him, hey, give your wife a night, man. Come out to my house, bring your 2 little ones. It might suck for both of us, but at least your wife gets a night and we can do it together. We can dad daycare this shit and we'll make it happen. So I think when you can support and understand when people are in those situations, it's easier to lend a hand because you've been in that situation yourself. So
I love it.
Yeah,
that's so great. All right, like let's go down. There should be we should list some things. We kind of talked about porn. Like if somebody wants to be held accountable for porn, alcohol is probably another one, right? Hold me accountable for that. Drugs and alcohol. Hold me accountable for what? I'm gonna say, me. I'm a huge self-care advocate. So I'm gonna say all of the things that are super boring and totally basic: sleep, food, water, exercise. Those 4 things, man, they really matter.
Yeah,
what do you want to piggyback on?
Lifestyle. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, what other kinds of things do we want to be held accountable for?
But Matt, the last things that you labeled, that's like changing the oil in your car. A lot of times we push ourselves with work and with other responsibilities, and the thing that falls off is self-care, right? So if you're not putting yourself in an optimized place, how are you going to be effective for other people, right? So that does have to be a priority, and sometimes you need to be reminded, because you'll push yourself beyond what's healthy, and other people will notice that you're kind of falling off or maybe becoming a bit less effective. But if you have an accountability person there, they can kind of check in with you and make sure that you're changing your oil at the intervals and doing the necessary maintenance on yourself to be as effective as you can be.
Yeah,
what do you want to say, Chad? I'm just taking notes.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of an open conversation. I think you could be held accountable for anything. Did you go, hey guys, I know you got some grubby toes. Did you go get a pedicure this week? All right, let's talk about it, man. I get pedicures. I ain't scared. I mean, I think yeah, that's right. I'm down for man spa day. I'm not scared. But yeah, I think it comes down to what you're comfortable talking about and what, how do you want to be held accountable, on this type of stuff. And
that's our next topic. Hold on. You're going too fast.
All right. I'll pump the brakes. Go ahead and throw it up.
Because it's worth talking about. Like, everybody's different. I've been a youth hockey coach for 17 years. If there's anything I've learned, it's that I cannot coach any 2 kids the same way. And so when it comes to this, listen, the veteran community as it relates to the people we're trying to address in this podcast, in this stream, are they going to want somebody who's a little bit like a drill sergeant, or are they going to want somebody who's a little bit more gentle? Firm but fair is kind of my favorite phrase in the world. I think that's ultimately who you need to find. Yep. But, I mean, what kind of style of accountability are we looking for here, guys? Let's open that up.
Yeah, I think you got to understand that person's communicative skills and what, like for me, I want the drill sergeant, the louder. Yeah, I do. the louder, the better, the more accountability. I hate to say it, but down talk me a little bit, because it's just it kind of adds, right? It's like, now I got to prove this asshole wrong or her wrong. All right, you're talking shit. Okay, let's keep going. I got you. Let's go. But you play patty cake with me, I'm gonna blow you off. Like, yeah. All right, I'll catch you next week. So for me, I need the drill instructor, and it's one of the things, even kind of like working out at the gym. I deviated septum surgery last week. I still got the stents in my nose.
You do?
I do.
You
I get them
incredible,
out.
dude. I had that shitty surgery. It's awful.
I get stents out tomorrow. So I'm like, I can't wait. I can't wait to get them removed. So for this last week and a half, I've eaten like shit. I've slept like shit. My moods have been like shit. I haven't meditated, and I can tell the difference in my body. So it's like, I can't wait to get these things out so I can get back to working out and getting back into a routine and things again and feeling better. So I think it comes down again to all sorts of what's your needs? How do you like to be communicated? Like I said, give me the drill sergeant, hit me upside the head, and let's get after it.
You know me, Dr. Dave, I like to be specific with my language and words. And so if somebody's watching us right now, they're like, okay, this resonates with me. I think I know who my accountability buddy should be. It seemed like step one to me is to call them up, say, listen, I was watching a stream today or listening to a podcast. They were talking about accountability buddies. I think you're going to be an accountability buddy for me, or at least that's what I'd like. I want to be held accountable on my drinking and my exercise. And if you could just be my guy, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, daily, what do you think is a good starting ground?
A couple times a week.
I think that's fair. A couple of times a week with a text message or something like that. I mean, this is the language we want to use, right?
You can check in by a text, but there's nothing like having a conversation.
For sure.
And if you can meet face to face, even better, because if you're getting squirrely, the other guy's going to see it, and they can call you out on it. Text message, I was busy, I didn't get the text, or you could give a quick answer and kind of leave a lot on the table. But if you're having a conversation and you specifically task the other person with holding you accountable, then you've also given them permission to call BS if they see that you're not coming clean with stuff.
You like that, don't you, Chad?
I love it. Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's enough of it. I think there's too much beat around the bush in the world today. I mean, if you're dropping the ball, you're dropping the ball. And I have had plenty of drop balls in my life. But I think it's coming to that man in the mirror thing. All right, stop being a shithead. Do what you got to do, and let's move this forward, kind of a deal, And I think more people need kind of that slap upside the head as opposed to, let's talk around the bush and baby it a little bit.
Right, and there's a difference between just being critical of another person and accountability, right? So you are setting out to improve a certain aspect of your life, right? So that means that you're going to not be doing it right when you first make that request or that ask of somebody. You're going to be screwing up. You're going to be making mistakes. You're going to be kind of doing it half-heartedly or maybe bailing on it from time to time, right? So the idea is when you're first taking an inventory of what you want to improve, there's going to be things that need improvement, right? Which means that you're not doing it correctly or not doing it as well as you want to. So you're giving the other person permission to push you along with the idea that you're moving toward improvement. You're moving toward being a better person, right? So that's different than just somebody, hurling insults at you or saying, you're lazy, you whatever.
Chad likes that shit, man. Chad wants that, man. Chad wants to be talked down to.
I'm a huge David Goggins fan. If you know who David Goggins is.
I do. He's way
him,
too much for me. I remember like 2 years ago when I kind of started on this little journey of mine, and there was some Instagram video that I clicked on, and this guy was doing these men's camps, right, to like mental toughness, and literally I was so excited by this guy, and then I clicked it, went down the rabbit hole, and I watched the next video, and then I find out in this promo video that day 3 these guys get into a boxing ring and beat the hell out of each other. And I was like, I'm done. That's where I draw the line.
Yeah, I think that's past the firm but fair, right? I want the firm but fair, but I don't know, man. I'm old now. I don't need someone punching me in the
I
face.
don't
All
need
right.
people punching me either, man. I was so taken aback by it. But, I do think it's important to talk to your accountability buddy about what kind of style you're looking for, and what you're going to respond to. And not what you want to hear, but like Chad is saying, kind of what you need to hear, kind of a vibe. There's so much stuff that you wrote down here, Dave. Is there anything you're kind of wanting to say right now?
No, we're on track.
We are on track. Yeah, no, my two favorite words to discuss these days. Well, there's a lot of words, but these are two of my faves. Are guilt and shame, and we got to be super careful in this space, especially with both. Um, and I have a little bit of a story that kind of connects that. I have a friend of mine who's just done a lot of healing herself, and yesterday felt this great need to sort of reach out to one of the people in her inner circle because she just had this epiphany in this moment. And my advice to her was, only reach out to her if it's not going to disrupt her day, right? Because this is your thing right now that you're working through, and they don't need to be there for every moment you have, for every kind of revelation you have. Long story short, she didn't get my text in time. She reached out. It was kind of sounds like maybe wasn't what it should have been, but I think that I bring that up to say that sometimes we want to do too much.
Yeah. Talking about guilt and shame, I think the direction that society has been moving lately is to avoid all negative emotions.
Yeah.
And we talk a lot about being positive and trying to set positive goals and stuff like that. But realize, as with physical pain, negative emotions have a useful purpose. So you don't want to eradicate them entirely, but you want to let them inform you, right? So if you feel depressed, just like run-of-the-mill depression, not clinical depression where you're withdrawing from everything and avoiding everything, but you just wake up and you feel crappy, you feel down. Stop and take a moment, step back. Why do I feel down? What's going on? What where am I off track? What goal am I not reaching? Where do I feel inadequate? Right? So you can ask those questions with genuine curiosity and try to figure out how to get back on track again. So similar with guilt, if you're doing something that you want to not do and you want to improve at it, when you mess up, you might end up hurting somebody close to you, right? And you should feel guilty, right? If you've emotionally harmed somebody, you should have a twinge of guilt about that because it shows that you're engaged, like that relationship means something to you. And when there's an injury, you're feeling it inside, right? So take that and be informed by it and do something to fix the situation, right? Mend that fence. Where guilt becomes a problem is when it becomes so enlarged that it shuts you down, right? So if you're walking around feeling guilty all the time, maybe you're taking on guilt feelings for things that you had no control over, right? So that's an inappropriate guilt. It's going to cause you to withdraw instead of engage, right? So I think that's the dividing line that you want to keep an eye out for is if you feel guilty about something and it engages you, it makes you want to go and fix the situation and mend that relationship, then it's healthy. But if it's causing you to withdraw and pull away and avoid things, then probably not.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth noting the body sends you a signal, so you do something about it. And if it sends you anger, you're getting that because something probably isn't right. If you're getting guilt, you're feeling that because you might have done something. And I don't know about you, Chad, but like I'm pretty clear about this, right? When I was going through all my stuff, everybody around me got the worst parts of me. No question about it. My kids got the worst parts of me. My wife got the worst parts of me. My career did. My friends, like nobody got really anything good for me. And the dangerous place for people to live is in feeling bad about that 1 or 2 years of my life where it didn't go so great because then I don't allow myself to get out of it. I'm still holding on to the fact that I because you feel crappy that you didn't have it all together, and then you feel doubly worse that you probably put wounds on your children that they didn't deserve, and you can feel pretty crappy about that and not get out of it. And so what do you talk about with relation to that, Dr. Dave, in terms of like, you got to set that down too, just as much as you have to set down the trauma?
Yep. Yeah. The space that you're in at that point, you're not there now, right? And you're moving forward in a positive direction now, right? So if guilt is piling on and causing a weight that's causing you to slide backwards, then it's not useful. So you can do positive things now to build those relationships. I'm not saying necessarily make up for it, right? Because sometimes that's another way that things can get pathological is, you feel badly because of the way that you treated your kids for a period of time. I know for some of the veterans that are on, during periods of deployment, you're away, you're serving your country, but it's hard for the family. And sometimes when you come back from deployment, you see some of the ways that the kids struggled, your kids struggled, and you might feel guilty about that. All you have is where you're going forward at this point. You can't go back and change what's already been done. And if you try to overcompensate and do unnecessary spoiling, to try to make up for it, buying a lot of gifts and stuff like that, you're using that as a substitute for building a relationship here and now, and trying to establish where things are going at this point.
That's so important what you just said. It really is. And it's tough, right? Because if you don't do a little bit of the work, then essentially you're playing hurt. And then when you're playing hurt, as we talk about week after week, you're not in a good frame of mind to make good decisions. What are you thinking about, Chad, as you listen to what he's talking about?
100% agree. I mean, it's things that I've always beat myself up, from having the burn-in, and not fully, getting that, military career like I wanted to, the being SF, the whole 9 yards, or relationships that I know that I screwed the pooch on, or, colleagues at work that I was probably ruder to that I didn't need to be, but I was pissed off about something else, or I just didn't like the job or whatnot. So yeah, I mean, I beat myself up, and I have, because it's just like, God damn it, you're better than that. Like, that's not the way to react. Use your tools. There's things like that. And then, you go down that negative roller coaster talk. But now it's, I catch myself, if I know I'm giving somebody a hard time, or I might be a little bit more brasher than I need to be, I kind of step back, and I do now confront him. Hey, I love you. I'm giving you shit. But if I step over that line, you need to let me know. So, all's fair in love and war kind of a deal. So it's something I still probably struggle with a little bit, because I beat myself up because I expect more of myself in certain situations.
Yeah, this is to me where the amends come in, and
Yeah.
people will think that this is the hardest thing in the world, but for me, it was like the most therapeutic thing in the world to sit down my wife, my kids, all individually, right? Did none of this thing in a group setting. Each one of these people got one-on-one attention from me to say, I'm sorry, I love you. That had nothing to do with you. And all I'm going to do now is be a better dad moving forward. Okay.
And this is the appropriate guilt, right? Something caught you, and it's like, oh, I messed up. I shouldn't have done that. But that's guilt serving its proper purpose.
Yeah. There you go. Maybe the one time that it actually is worth a person, huh? Or worth a crap. We're going to wrap up in the next couple of minutes, because we're getting upwards of 45 minutes. But I would love, to just spend a minute talking about small victories. And I don't want anybody running away from us just yet, because this is an important topic. Men can want to see very large movements. We're not very good millimeter to millimeter, but boy, are we good foot to foot, yard to yard. And so small victories, man. It's a little bit about gratitude to me. It's a little bit what I think about when I think of small victories. What do you mean when you say that, Dr. Dave?
This is a game of inches. It's not you're not going to accomplish this overnight. And where I've seen people go wrong over the years is expecting that they're going to like have one big push and it's all going to be fixed and they're going to be able to just do that for the rest of their life. What ends up happening is they do that one big push, they have a misstep, they get frustrated, they go back to the old way of doing things, things get out of control, then they have one big push and they try to get back on track again. And you know what falls into these categories: drinking, overeating, weight gain, things like that. It's a very frustrating process. And if you fast forward 10 years from now and look back, if you're doing it episodically, you end up not as far as you would have been had you just done little things consistently, day by day, and then don't worry about seeing the improvement immediately. But just trust the process. Trust that you're doing the things fundamentally that are going to end up taking you to a better place, and just keep working on it a little bit day by day, and pick long intervals to look back. Right. So instead of, shutting the whole thing down over one misstep, this is, I think, another place where an accountability partner, maybe even a spouse, can come in. 4 months from now, have that person check in with you and say, what's gotten better, what still needs work. Because when you're talking about a longer interval, you can actually see real change and lasting change because you've had a chance to practice it to the part where it becomes a part of who you are. It becomes just how you do things. Right. And that's why the small victories are important as opposed to the big pushes. Anybody can do a big push. You can do anything for a couple weeks. But to be able to do something consistently over years takes practice to the point where you can do it without thinking about it.
What's that line that everybody loves so much about practice? We're not going to practice until we, help me out here. We're not going to practice until we, We're going to practice until we can't get it wrong. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about? Have you ever heard that before?
I'm on that Allen Iverson. We talking about practice here? That's all I got. I mean, I don't know.
There's some line out there about like, we're not going to practice this until we get it right. We're going to practice this until we can't get it wrong. That's the line.
Yeah.
That's the line. Yeah, no, it's a cool line on that. All right. Well, I want to wrap up, but I want to talk about two things before we leave. I want to talk 4-wheel driving because I want to know what you learned. And then I want to talk a little bit about that 212 hat that you've got on, Chad, because I know it's close to what's happening back in your hometown. But before we get to that, Dave, dude, shine some light. What did you learn? You were up in Moab getting 4-wheel drive training. What did you learn?
So had I not taken this class, I would have never attempted on my own some of the things that they put us through.
Wow.
The instructor is pointing to a direction where supposedly the trail goes, but I'm just seeing like the edge of the dirt and it looks like it's just a cliff. Okay, seriously, I'm going to drive down that. Okay. And this was a good thing because it kind of took me out of my own comfort zone in a way, to just trust the process. Right. So the instructor had been four-wheeling since he was 15 years old, and turned out that he was also a veteran himself, 23 years in special forces, and we had some interesting conversations along the trip. But it's like, okay, you're telling me to do this. You're telling me that the vehicle is capable of doing this, and you're going to guide me through it. Okay, I will take that for what it is, and we're just going to move forward. And it ended up working out fine. In a lot of cases, not even scraping up the vehicle. Some of the obstacles that we went over were things that I would have never imagined taking my own vehicle over.
Did you get any GoPro footage or anything like that fun that we could share next week?
I got a little bit. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I got some video of other people
doing what you were doing.
Yeah, and then I had somebody shoot a video of me coming down. Is a steep hill with alternating ruts, and you have to just take it slow, and sometimes the truck is articulating in a way that you have a wheel sticking up in the air, and Yeah,
That's
you don't
wild.
have four wheels on the ground at all times.
I have
wild.
been in my Jeep once upon a time. I owned a Jeep, and I remember being on three wheels and how much that got my attention. And I was like, "What are we doing here?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever drive anything like that in the Army, though, Chad, where you guys were like four-wheel driving in Hummers and you got yourselves into some crazy terrain?
Yeah, I mean, we had some defensive driving type stuff that we did, and you usually
Yeah.
have a designated driver, per platoon and stuff, or per squad, and that individual, goes to other different classes. I never really drove behind the wheel on it, but I've been through it, and it was like, holy shit, I can't believe this vehicle does this type of stuff. So
Yeah, I have to say the one thing that I walked away from, which I think is going to be the most helpful, there's plenty of obstacles where you can see like deep white scrapes in the rocks and stuff like that. But the two things are picking your line, right? So
Okay.
where am I going to place my tires to get over this obstacle?
Right.
And sometimes the approach, some of the folks that got hung up on things would just go straight on into it. With trucks that have independent front suspension, taking it at an off angle, which doesn't seem intuitive, actually gives you more control and more clearance under the vehicle than just going straight at it and trying to hit it head on. So sometimes the approach and where you place that's the knowledge, and then the vehicle just does the rest.
oof, talk about being puckered up.
Sounds fun, man. Sounds like a lot of fun.
It's
I'm
great,
into
and
that.
Moab is just gorgeous. It's just
It is
beautiful
so
up there.
beautiful up there, man. That is such next level. I'm actually going to be in Salt Lake City, which is not close, but and I'll be in Utah next week. I got tapped to speak at the Energy Healing Conference in up in Utah. So I'm going to go. I'm going to be the closing keynote up there. Look out!
That's awesome. We're gonna miss you by about a week. We're going up there 4th of July weekend. We're gonna go up in Park City for a little bit.
Are you?
Yeah, just get out of the heat. We got to get the hell out of
Oh,
here.
amen to that. All right, we're going to wrap in a sec. Last thing I want to talk about is the 212. It's on its hat. A lot of people have seen the news footage today. I'm not even somebody who plugs into the news much, and it crossed my feed of these rivers blowing through Yellowstone right now with the mudslides and all the stuff. From what I can gather, it's a deadly combination of a lot of snow and a lot of rain too close to each other. And now we find ourselves in some serious places. But that's 212 is not Yellowstone, is it?
No, 212 is a highway that connects Billings, Montana to kind of Red Lodge, Montana. There's a little corridor there that kind of goes through there. And the 212 bar is right on the outskirts of Joliet, Montana. My grandparents actually own the home that's behind 212 bar, essentially just across a church that's there. And so I've driven that 212 highway many, many times with family, going to see the grandparents or going up to Red Lodge to ski. And that area has got hit pretty hard. Red Lodge is a really cute, little kind of touristy / ski town in the winter. And it's probably going to be a couple years. They've literally lost, I don't know, a couple hundred homes. I know the floods have gone right through their main street. And this is a place where I went as a kid, for small town 4th of July celebrations and things of that nature. So Montana's always been near and dear to my heart. I've been down here in the valley now 19 years, but Montana, I was born and raised there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our Montana Mental Joe design shirt. We're going to upcharge them a little bit to try to raise a little bit more chunk of money sooner than later. But what we're going to do with the sale of that shirt is all proceeds are going to go to some kind of nonprofit or some kind of, Red Cross of Montana that needs some money, whether it's, pallets of water or people needing new clothes, whatever it is. So we're going to donate that here at Mental Joe, and we're going to be launching a campaign. But it's pretty rough up there. They're calling it the 100-year flood for Montanans. It's actually starting to overflow in the Yellowstone. That's going right by Billings, and Billings is the biggest metropolitan area, it's like 140,000 people. So it's the so-called big city up there. But yeah, it's some of the footage is pretty gnarly. You're seeing houses and bridges being swept away.
And you see that house that got taken down, that it just literally falls into the water and starts going down.
Yep. We're supposed to go take a family trip up there, and that's why we're just going to go to Park City instead. We're going to take a full family trip, drive up, do the whole 9 yards. I was going to go camping in Red Lodge. My buddy actually took his camper and put it up there so he could get us a great spot, and he's probably lost his camper. He doesn't know, like, he can't go up there. The Forest Service, he's like, yeah, you're not going to be able to get up here for a good 2-3 weeks, if not a month. So if it's still up here, good luck to you. So yeah, it's there's some craziness going on. And then Arizona, we got our lovely fires and Flagstaff shutting down highways too. So
that's so scary.
Yeah, world of hurt right now.
All right. Well, listen, we'll be back next week. And then I think we're going to be off 1 week because I'm going to go to Colorado, and we'll just need to shake out together whether or not we want to pre-record something or not. But good talk today, gents. I enjoyed it.
Likewise. Always enjoyed it.
As always.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Thanks, everybody, for checking us out. Make sure you follow at Metal Joe down there for the apparel if you want to sneak onto one of those shirts and pick yourself up something nice. Have a great day, everybody. Everybody.
We'll see you.